Welcome back to my channel, Explaining Biology Clearly. Today we're going to talk about one type of lipid called phospholipids. There are other lipids. Triglycerides are a type. I have a video on triglycerides, so do check that out. Waxes and also sterols. For example, cholesterol is a sterol. Those are other types of lipids, but today we're going to talk about the phospholipids. So first of all, we'll begin by having a look at their structure, and later on we'll talk about where you find them. Over on the right-hand side of the page here, I have a picture of a phospholipid at the top here. And at the bottom, I have a picture of a triglyceride just to compare. So take a look at the phospholipid for a moment. There's two ways of representing it, either as a circle with two lines, or as a rectangle with a circle attached and two lines below. Either is fine. This one on the right hand side probably has more detail. So it shows that a phospholipid is made of a molecule of glycerol, and attached to that is a phosphate group. Attached onto those parts are two fatty acid tails. On this diagram here of the phospholipid on the left hand side, the glycerol and the phosphate group are represented both by a circle with the two fatty acids below. Now if we compare that to another type of lipid, the triglyceride is made up of just glycerol and three fatty acids attached. So instead of the third fatty acid, a phospholipid has only two with a phosphate group attached. Now to talk a little bit more about the structure of a phospholipid, there are two terms that we need to understand a little bit further, and those are the words polar and the word non-polar. Two fairly important terms in biological molecules to help understand their properties and how they behave. So let's take a look at polar, the word polar first, and what we mean by it. So a molecule is polar if it has areas of opposite charge on the molecule. So it has to have areas of opposite charge on the molecule. Now a good example of a polar molecule is water. So if we have a look at a water molecule, which looks something like, I've added two oxygens, of course it hasn't, I was doing that deliberately, it's got one oxygen and two hydrogens. If we have a look at a water molecule there, you can see it has positively charged hydrogens and a negatively charged oxygen there. So areas of opposite charge on one molecule. Now polar molecules, another example, let's give you another one, might be glucose. So polar molecules, like if you think of glucose, they interact with other polar molecules. So basically areas of opposite charge can come together, be attracted together. So they interact with other polar molecules. Glucose dissolves in water, for example, because it is polar, because they are both polar. So polar molecules, because they will interact with other molecules, polar molecules, they will interact with water, for example, they are described as being hydrophilic. Hydro means water, philic means to be attracted to or to like. So they are attracted to water. Now the term non-polar refers to a molecule that has an even distribution of charges. So on that one molecule there is an even distribution of charges. So they don't interact with polar molecules. They don't interact with polar molecules. So a non-polar molecule, for example, would be insoluble in water, it doesn't interact with water, and therefore it is said to be hydrophobic, water-hating or repelling water. Now, if you have a look at these molecules on the right-hand side here, triglycerides are non-polar. They're non-polar molecules, so they've got even distribution of charges throughout the molecule. So they are insoluble in water, and they're also, therefore, hydrophobic. If we look at phospholipids, they're an unusual molecule because they have two parts with two different characteristics. So this part here is called the head. So the glycerol and the phosphate group is called the head, and it is a polar part of the molecule. It's a polar head. So it being polar means that it is hydrophilic. Now the tails, which we'll call the tails, they are non-polar. So they are non-polar, and so they have the characteristic of being hydrophobic. So it's an unusual molecule, and the reason I went into that in so much detail is because that quality of polar and non-polar explains how they arrange them, the phospholipids arrange themselves in the cell membrane. So the role of phospholipids is in the cell membrane, not just the membrane around the cell, but also membrane around organelles you find in eukaryotic cells, so around all plasma membranes. So I'll just draw a little picture of a plasma membrane or cell membrane, and it's made up of two layers of phospholipids. There's one. So let's say this is the outside of the cell, and this is the other layer of phospholipids here. So if that's out of the cell, this is in the cell, this is inside the membrane here. So you can see you have two layers, so it's referred to as a bilayer. The cell membrane is a bilayer. But what's interesting is that the tails are pointed inwards. So they're pointed in, and the heads are on the outside of the membrane. And that's because of their hydrophilic and hydrophobic qualities. So the tails, being hydrophobic, water repelling, are in the inside away from water, and the tails, being hydrophilic, the heads rather, being hydrophilic, are on the outsides of the membrane where you find water in the cytoplasm, for example. I hope this video has helped you to understand a little bit more about phospholipids. Do like and subscribe to my channel and check out some more videos. Thanks very much.